Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a first look at a brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, Flamigo. Flamigo is a flying and fighting type Pokemon with a moveset of Double Kick, Upper Hand, and Brave Bird, and it can just be encountered as a wild spawn, which is pretty nice for a change. No research tasks, no raids, you can just go out in the wild and track it down pretty easily. Now Flamigo is definitely on the glassier side of things, but the moveset it has is quite strong. So, I am optimistic that this will, at the very least, be a fun Pokemon to play. So, without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, we're off to a very strong start, leading Jellicent into Empoleon. My opponent safe switches into Altaria, and unfortunately for me, I actually don't have a strong answer to an Altaria safe switch. The Florges moveset that I'm running is Chilling Water and Trailblaze, and with that moveset, Florges actually loses to Altaria, so I'm kind of forced to stay in. However, I have a secondary answer to Empoleon in the back with Flamigo. So, I'm not too worried about losing switch advantage if my opponent decides to try and force alignment. And it looks like that's exactly what they're going to do. Sky Attack, I think, will barely miss the knockout here. My opponent, they're on Dragon Pulse. That's a very cool pick. Dragon Pulse lands, and I'm definitely not surviving that. My opponent pivots into Gourgeist, and this is where things could get tricky. I farm up energy, catch a Seed Bomb onto Flamigo, but Flamigo is very, very frail, so I'm going to be taking quite a lot of damage here. Flamigo farming up a ton of energy, they're going to fire off yet another Seed Bomb. I should survive the Incinerate, so I'm going to throw a Double Kick, wait the turn to ensure the Incinerate lands first, and then go for the Brave Bird. Brave Bird into Gourgeist, picks up the one-hit knockout, and back in comes Empoleon. If they shield this, then I can just make double Trailblaze. They end up no shielding, and that is unfortunately going to be game over either way. Upper Hand rocks the Empoleon. I'm able to get a shield with Trailblaze. They try and catch the Trailblaze onto Altaria, but it's just too little too late. Florges is too bulky, able to withstand Sky Attack, get a full farm down, exit with the Trailblaze locked and loaded, and we're going to be able to take this game 1 win. That Gourgeist was very, very scary once my Jellicent was gone, but my goodness, the damage from Flamigo, we're able to get the win. Great lead in the next match, leading Jellicent into Marowak. My opponent safe switches into Licky Licky, and I respond with Flamigo. The double kicks are adding up quite a bit. They go for the Shadow Ball, and look at how frail Flamigo is. Flamigo almost gets one-shot by a neutral Shadow Ball, but I return the favor and take the knockout with Upper Hand. My opponent sends in Jellicent. Jellicent looking for a farm down, but guess what? Flamigo made it to the Brave Bird. Brave Bird connects, and they lose almost their entire Jellicent. The damage output from this Pokemon is very, very fun right away. They're going to be more than likely full sending the Shadow Ball, and I'm just going to look to pivot into the Florges to get up on energy. They bring back in the Marowak. I actually didn't notice till now that this is the non-Shadow Marowak. Non-Shadow Marowak, unfortunately, just can't really do what the Shadow does. The Shadow is so good at, two-shielding through things like Jellicent, and the regular just doesn't have that same damage. And unfortunately for my opponent, even though I'm down a shield, with me being up energy, I can just spam out Chilling Water after Chilling Water. They're now at -2 on their attack, which means a Bone Club, I don't even think it's going to knock out here. I'm so low, it still doesn't knock out. They try for a catch on Jellicent, but I just went for the Hex anyway, and now we will get the Surf into the Marowak. Marowak will be surviving due to the fact that they're not Shadow, but I have another Surf. So much energy stored on this Jellicent, so we're in a very, very good spot. Down goes Marowak, and we take the win. We get a very bad lead in the next match, Jellicent into Morpeko. I save switch into Florges, but this is going to be a very tricky game. Morpeko basically beats this entire team. Morpeko fires off the electric Aura Wheel, I put up the shield, and now they pivot into Shadow Talonflame. Even though I'm up on energy here, unfortunately, they survive one Chilling Water, so they are going to be letting that go. I'm going to look to throw 4 in the move so I can guarantee the shield back, and then I'm going to look to switch out into Jellicent as soon as possible. Unfortunately, my switch clock is not up yet, so I'm forced to throw 2 more Fairy Winds, and then I get the catch onto the Jellicent. Fly is going to land. That's double debuff. That's really not going to do a lot, and I'm more than happy to absorb another Fly as well. I'm still going to exit this matchup pretty healthy. Well, at least I was, until they ended up revealing they have Brave Bird, and Shadow Brave Bird, even at -2, does way too much damage. I fire off the Surf. They're going to get a big farm down, exiting with energy. I'm anticipating they're going to CMP time me here, so I overfarm, and they didn't throw. Oh my goodness. I could have just thrown the Chilling Water and knocked them out because I assumed they'd CMP time me, but they were off on my counts. And that is a misplay that could very well cost me the game, because now Flamigo's not going to have a shield in the end game. Flamigo forced to shield up the Psychic Fangs. In the back, is Corviknight, and unfortunately, this game is a loss. If I could get to 2 upper hands, I'd be able to win this game, but unfortunately, this should be a CMP tie to the air cutter. Upper hand absolutely destroys Corviknight. It does so much damage, but I'm just too frail. I'm debuffed by the Psychic Fangs, and we will lose the game. Great lead in the next match, Jellicent into Shadow Celio. Shadow Celio is going to be completely walled here. I'm just going to farm up to 100. There's the catch attempt, and I respond with my Flamigo. If they caught a Shadow Ball, that could be a way back in the game for them, so I'm very happy I was able to hold on to that energy. Body Slam does so much damage, and I will CMP tie upper hand with their Body Slam. Upper hand into the Licky Licky. I miss a bubble, and they live on 1 HP. Oh my goodness. That is just sloppy gameplay from me. It should have KO'd, but you saw I only hit the great, and if you hit the great instead of the excellent, that means it's not at full power. So I shouldn't have had to go down a shield there. I end up going down both shields just because this is a Flamigo showcase. Normally I would have just let it go. I'm able to get a shield. They send in Corviknight. I bank the upper hand for later and send out Florges. Florges trying to get the Chilling Water, but my opponent is going to overfarm perfectly and fire off the air cutter right before I get there. Here, they're going to throw on alignment just to try and lock in as much damage as possible before I can get this debuff. They do get a boost, which is unfortunate because now I'm not going to be able to put them into the negative on attack. I'm just going to put them back to normal. I'm going to overfarm here, watching for a catch, and they predict it. I'm just getting hard red this game. Oh my goodness. Chilling Water lands onto the Celio. I'll stay in to force him to throw energy, and then I'm more than happy just to close out the game with Jellicent and the fact that I have an upper hand stored on my Flamigo. Back in comes Jellicent, looking to take the knockout onto Celio. Celio can't ever really damage me here, so they're just going to let it go and trust in the Corviknight. But Corviknight has taken too much damage throughout the course of this game. They're already in upper hand range, and even if I get knocked out, I'm more than happy just to completely let the Jellicent go and win the game with Flamigo. They land the payback. I have the game-winning Shadow Ball, but this is the Flamigo show. We're going to let ourselves get farmed down to make the upper hand on Flamigo, knocking out Corviknight and getting our revenge from the Corviknight that beat us in the previous game. We see a pretty familiar lead in the next match, Altaria leading into our Jellicent. Even though this is a very favorable lead win for Jellicent, I still have a big problem. And that's that Altaria is always paired with Empoleon, and my backline is very, very weak to Empoleon. Even though I have a fighter in Flamigo, Flamigo gets outpaced by Empoleon, which means if I end up playing a one shield, for example, and they bring in Empoleon, my backline is about to get absolutely destroyed. So I think my best bet is unfortunately just to sacrifice the Jellicent, take a shield advantage, and then hope with shield advantage I'll be able to get the win. I bring in Florges looking for a farm down. My opponent pivots out into Blastoise. Now that's not a Pokemon you see every day. I'm forced to stay in here because I'm pretty confident that it's Empoleon in the back. But the bad news for me is because they stored energy on the Altaria, I just don't think that I can win either way. Hydro Cannon lands. I'm forced to go for the Trailblaze right away to ensure they don't make Hydro Cannon number 2, but I think the damage is already done. Realistically, I don't know if there's a way for me to win this game. If they bring in Empoleon, whether I stay in and fire off the double boosted Trailblaze, or whether I switch out immediately, I think either way my opponent's going to make it to 3 charge attacks before I can double up with Flamigo. I fire off the Trailblaze, that does huge damage, but sadly does not get the shield. They Drill Peck immediately, and there's the switch to Altaria. And Altaria had already banked a Sky Attack from earlier, and they're just going to get the outpace here. Double Kick does have pretty nice energy generation, but it's not enough. They're at the back-to-back. I know it. My only hope is that somehow I can Fairy Wind down with the Florges, but Florges is just simply too low. We get farmed down, and we do lose the game. Decent lead in the next match, Jellicent into Primeape. Opponent save switches into a Gourgeist. Oh my goodness. The Primeape lead is a winning lead for Jellicent, so I was more than happy to play that out, but the fact that they switched in Gourgeist, my backline gets destroyed by Gourgeist. So I'm very, very happy to see the Gourgeist here. My opponent is forced to Seed Bomb on alignment, otherwise I would have been able to force both of their shields without having to shield myself. They decide to try and call a bait, they get KO'd by Shadow Ball, and now we're just in a completely winning position. It doesn't matter what my opponent has in the back. Turns out they have Altaria in the back. I'm going to farm up a ton of energy, bank a Shadow Ball for later, and then send in Florges. My opponent is ABA weak to Fairy, so I'm in a pretty nice spot. Now, I'm completely walled here, but obviously my opponent will not know that. So I'm going to farm up, bluffing like I do have the Moonblast. Chilling Water, get shielded on a CMP tie. Oh my goodness. This game was already over, but that's just going to absolutely seal it. In comes Primeape. Primeape did throw a Karate Chop before switching out earlier, but Primeape is able to CMP tie and deny my Chilling Water with the Rage Fist. They're now boosted up as I send in Flamigo, and I'm looking to close out this game. They're boosted. I have to shield everything. We saw how glassy Flamigo is. I'm going to do 2 double kicks in the move, getting the maximum overfarm. This should allow me to outpace the Altaria. Back in comes Altaria. Altaria does not get the Sky Attack, and that's going to be game over. Flamigo standing tall, taking the 1-hit KO with a Brave Bird, and that is a good game. We get a pretty decent lead in the next match, Jellicent into Marowak, or at least it would be a decent lead if Jellicent didn't lose the 2s. This is the power of Shadow Marowak. They should throw when they get the double up, so I'm just going to get a catch onto Flamigo. Flamigo bobbing its head a little bit as it catches the double resisted Bone Club. My opponent's going to be pivoting out, sending in Togekiss. I'm trying to make the Brave Bird, but I get outpaced by a singular turn. That is really unfortunate. Aura Sphere will take the knockout, and I think that honestly I'm in a little bit of trouble. Getting that move would have been absolutely massive. I do 1-turn lag on Bring In, which is a little bit unfortunate. Togekiss on Ancient Power. That is not what I was expecting to see whatsoever. I fire off Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball is going to get them very low, and now I switch in Florges. Florges looking for a farm down. In the back is Empoleon. But hold on a second. Florges up energy can actually do pretty well here because the double Trailblaze will knock out the Empoleon. Empoleon's always going to try and go for the CMP type, but I'm not going to go for it. Instead, I'm going to look to try and exit with as much residual energy as I can possibly get. So I overfarm quite a bit, fire off the Trailblaze, number 2. The boosted Trailblaze will KO Empoleon, and this is going to be a very close game. I have a move stored on Jellicent, so my goal here is to force the shield and then try and snipe them. So I get to fire off the double boosted Chilling Water. They're forced to shield. I'm going to wait the turn, try and go for the catch, and it looks like either my game didn't update or they waited the turn as well, and that's going to win them the game. If they waited the turn as well, that is a crazy good play from my opponent. Man, we did have a chance there, but unfortunately, the move got caught, and that is going to cost us the game. We move to the next match, seeing a very scary lead, Jellicent into Regidrago. Regidrago has very strong neutral play into both Jellicent and Flamigo, so this is not a Pokemon I'm particularly happy to see. I'm going to be firing off Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball will not take the knockout, but it's going to be getting the Regidrago pretty low, which is nice. I'm going to farm up, attempt to catch on Florges. I do not get it, but my opponent sends out a shiny Jellicent. Jellicent is not going to have a good matchup here. Even though Shadow Ball does a ton of damage to Florges, I can just ramp up my attack more and more and more. I'm always going to be no shielding since I know I survive whatever they throw. They full send Shadow Ball, and that's going to allow me a massive overfarm with Florges. Florges now going to be double boosted. Opponent puts up the shield, but they don't undertap. They needed to undertap because otherwise I was making it to a 3rd Trailblaze, and I take switch advantage and shield advantage. They send in Empoleon, but this game is very, very different because I have a shield advantage for Flamigo. Flamigo puts up the shield as they fire off the Drill Peck. There's the switch into Regidrago, but Regidrago is just going to be double kicked down. They go for the Dragon Energy, hoping that it lands through the shield, but it will not. I am absolutely shielding what Regidrago has to throw because I can just outpace the Empoleon. Back-to-back upper hands locked and loaded, and Flamigo up energy. This Mon is very, very fun. It's very, very difficult to use, but man, these games were pretty fun. Hopping to the final match, we've got a Jellicent Mirror. And Jellicent Mirrors are always tricky for me because if you take a look over there at my IVs, I'm not going to be winning a lot of CMP ties. So I like to just full send Shadow Balls. My opponent puts up the shield, I'm going to be shielding back, and my opponent does end up surf baiting me. But they get aggressive, they pivot out into Shadow Altaria. Shadow Altaria, I want to try and land a Shadow Ball and then send in the Florges, because Florges should be able to tank a Sky Attack pretty comfortably, and I've put them in a range where I will be able to knock them out with a Chilling Water. So I'm going to be no shielding. My opponent ends up going for Flamethrower, and that surprised me quite a bit. Flamethrower and Sky Attack actually do the exact same damage to Florges, so it's typically worth it just to go for the Sky Attack because obviously that has a slightly lower energy cost. I'm able to take the knockout here with the Chilling Water. Back in comes Jellicent, and now I have a choice to make. I think that I'm going to save the shield. I know how glassy Flamigo is. Flamigo frequently wants a shield, so I'm just going to be bringing back in the Jellicent and full sending the Shadow Ball. Opponent tries to call the bait. They get KO'd. It's a Dragon Breath Shadow Charizard in the back, and this is a Pokemon that could actually sweep me. Surf gets shielded. I think my Jellicent's getting farmed down, so I'm forced to send in Flamigo. Flamigo, oh man, it's going to come down to a Flamigo Charizard CMP tie. I don't know who wins it. Flamigo wins it. Oh my goodness, and I think that should secure me the game. Upper hand lands, we get an upper hand debuff, and I'm just getting knocked out here by the Air Cutter. When my opponent has other ideas, they go for an undercharge. What an undercharge! Do they have the move? They do not. They get farmed down by Hex. Oh my goodness, what a sensational undercharge from my opponent. They made that game terrifyingly close, but luckily they did not exit with that air cutter loaded. We get the Hex down, and somehow we're able to escape with the win. All in all, I had a lot of fun getting to run Flamigo. Flamigo, it's definitely not going to be a meta Pokemon by any means, and that's just purely based off of its stats. Flamigo is very, very frail. When it comes to stats for Flamigo, it's very, very similar to Morpeko. Morpeko's stats are pretty uninspiring. It has around 140 attack, pretty low defense, and decent HP, 1600 stat product overall, but what really carries Morpeko is Aura Wheel, which is an incredibly strong move. And Flamigo does have really good charge stacks, like Double Kick, Upper Hand, and Brave Bird is really nice. Like, I know another potential move that it could have learned would have been Close Combat. In Close Combat, Brave Bird would have been awful. So Upper Hand is way better for Flamigo to have. But I still think in this 1600 stat product range, it's a very playable spice pick, which is nice. I feel like they did really good justice with its moveset, but because of how frail it is, it would probably need something like overpoweringly broken to see consistent play. But all in all, considering some of the absolutely atrocious movesets that certain Pokemon have been released with, I call this a win. Flamigo, just based on how its stats translate, was always going to be a glass cannon, and they did a really nice job with its moveset. I think it's really easy a lot of the time when you see a Mon that has 1600 stat product, you can kind of just give up on it and say, you know what, who really cares? We can give it an atrocious moveset and it's not going to matter. But I feel like there was actually some attention to detail put into this moveset, and by giving it something like Upper Hand, it at least has a move that won't debuff itself to kind of fire off in neutral scenarios. And obviously Brave Bird from a Mon with 140 attack is going to do just stupid damage neutrally. So a very fun Mon, not a Mon that's going to be seeing a lot of play, but if you enjoy playing spicier picks, I think this is definitely a Mon worth grabbing, because even though this isn't a Mon for climbing or gaining elo, this Mon ended up being a ton of fun to use. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. Thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.